Hi friends, welcome back. We are going to keep reading Leon and the Spitting Image by Alan Kurzweil. Remember, I don't own the copyright to this book. We're just reading it out loud together for educational purposes. So, last time we read, right, Leon had just gotten in trouble for not being able to thread a needle, so he wasn't, doing what he was supposed to do in class, and being real nosy and going through Miss Hagmeyer's drawers. So we are going to pick up with Chapter 6, The Return of Napoleon. "Pantyhose!" P.W. exclaimed as soon as class let out. Leon nodded gravely and turned to Lily Matisse. "Did your mom tell you why the hag keeps her underwear in school?" "Nope," said Lily Matisse, "but she did see her changing glass eyes in the teacher's lounge." "She stores the spares in the cabinet," said Leon. "There must be 20 different kinds." "I'm pretty sure today's were snake eyes," said P.W. "How do you know?" said Lily Matisse skeptically. "The slutty pupils," said P.W. matter-of-factly. "I'll tell you one thing," Leon said. "I'll take a snake bite over sewing class any day." "Ditto," said P.W. "Double ditto," said Lily Matisse. The sound of a car horn interrupted them. Leon quickly spotted Napoleon Delange, the cheery taxi driver from the day before. "Need a lift, Monsieur Leon? No charge for friends." Leon hesitated. He liked Napoleon. He was funny and nice, but there was a problem. Napoleon came from Haiti, and Haiti was already pinned on his map. Leon worried his taxi collection would never grow if he kept using the same driver. "Go for it," P.W. urged. "That way you can spend your cab fare on candy." "And potato chips," Lily Matisse added. Leon considered his options. "Sure," he said, accepting Napoleon's offer. A few minutes into the ride, he tapped the hack license and said, "I've been wondering, Napoleon, why are you named after a pastry? Were your parents bakers?" Napoleon let out a deep-bellied laugh. No, Monsieur Leon. I was named for a famous French general, and so was the pastry. But the famous Napoleon was short, and I am tall. He was white, and I am black. He was powerful, and I am, well, I drive a taxi. And on top of all of that, I hate Napoleons." "Me too," Leon admitted. "Too custardy." He was wondering about how he'd feel eating a Leon, if such a pastry existed, when Napoleon said, "We do that in Haiti." "Do what?" "Name our children after important people. I have 3 brothers, Moses, Charlemagne, and Zeus, plus a sister, Cleopatra. You Americans are not interesting with your names." "I guess not," Leon admitted. "But tell me," said Napoleon, "did my prediction come true? Did you have a 9 3/4 day?" Leon sighed. "Hardly. More like a negative 9 3/4. "I'm sorry to hear that." "It's my teacher," Leon complained. "All she cares about is sewing." "But art class is a useful thing, Monsieur Leon. Sewing can be very useful." "I'm not talking about my art teacher. I'm talking about my teacher. "And she makes you sew?" "Yup," said Leon glumly. Napoleon shook his head in disbelief. "Plus, she has these disgusting-looking ears. They're like radar dishes that she keeps hidden under her possibly fake hair." "Mon Dieu!" Napoleon exclaimed. "You had better tell your mother about all this." The cab pulled up to the hotel a few moments later. Napoleon parked and, as he had the day before, jumped out to open the passenger door. "Au revoir, Monsieur Leon," he said with a tip of his imaginary hat. "And let us hope tomorrow will be at least a 7. "I'll settle for a 5.5, said Leon, before he pushed through the revolving door. He negotiated his way past a drably dressed woman walking a peacock and headed over to the reception desk, where his mother clearly had problems of her own. One of the guests, a rail-thin mime covered in white face paint, was shouting at her. "Look, lady, we didn't book this dump expecting a conference room with a broken microphone." "I apologize, sir," said Emma Ziesel. "Apologies won't give us our friggin' mic, will they?" the mime snarled. "Again, I am sorry." "Well, sorry doesn't cut it," he yelled. "Please lower your voice," Emma Ziesel said. "You are a mime, after all." The observation rendered the man speechless. He stormed off in a silent huff. Emma Ziesel turned to her son. "As group bookings go, Leon, the West Coast mimes are, without a doubt, the worst. What about those rattlesnake ranchers we had last year? Remember them? At least they left me some antidote. Came in handy, too. Anyway, let's forget about difficult guests, sweetie. Tell me about your day." Leon needed little encouragement. He provided a blow-by-blow account of the goings-on in his classroom, up to and including the business of the pantyhose. "Pantyhose," said Emma Ziesel. "Why on earth would a teacher store her old stockings in school?" "I have no clue, Mom. All I can tell you is I need help with my threading and stitching. Plus, I need a piece of cloth for tomorrow." Emma Ziesel sighed. "You know my hours, sweetie. These double shifts are a killer, but I bet Maria can get you squared away. She's a demon with a needle." After Leon updated the signboard, "Welcome Peacock Breeders of Walla Walla, Washington," he sought out Maria. He found her in housekeeping, funneling bright green shampoo from a large jug into dozens of tiny bottles. "Hola, Leonito," she said. "How are you doing?" "Not good, Maria." For a third time since leaving school, Leon described his new teacher's behavior and the pantyhose she kept in class. Is she crazy or something? Very crazy, Maria. She expects us to thread a needle and learn her 7 dumb stitches. Take a look. Leon pulled the hand out from his backpack. You need Maria to help? Maria asked. Could you? No problem, she said reassuringly. After completing the shampoo transfer, Maria cleared a table and brought out her sewing basket. She reached for a spool of cotton and bit off a length of thread. Miss Hagmaier doesn't want us using our teeth, said Leon. Maria shook her head. What harm can a little spit do? Beats me, said Leon. Well, you show me what she taught you, this Miss Pantyhose, Maria said suspiciously. Leon reached for the scissors and cut a length of thread. He tried poking the thread through the eye of the needle again and again, but failed every time. See, he moaned, I'll never do it. Yes, you will, Leonito, Maria countered. She expertly repositioned Leon's fingers on the scissors, like a baseball coach adjusting a batter's grip. Now cut the thread, she said. Leon held the scissors at a steep angle and sliced another length of thread off the spool. When it came time to thread the needle, he succeeded after just 2 pokes. Awesome, he exclaimed. Sharp angle, sharp cut, Maria said with a smile. Gracias, said Leon. For the first time since school started, he felt a small measure of satisfaction. Threading became a breeze. Mastering the 7 stitches of virtue, however, proved more challenging. Fortunately for Leon, Maria remained close at hand. No, Leonito, she corrected gently. Watch me. For the hemming stitch, you slant the needle. Leon modified his grip and tried again. Eventually, he hemmed 3 full inches of his practice cloth. You're a much better teacher than Miss Mushroom Ears, he said. I've got a good student, Maria replied. Good, but not perfect. Leon only succeeded in replicating 6 of the 7 stitches of virtue. 1 stitch eluded him, the overcast. According to his handout, the overcast was the stitch used when finishing off a seam. No matter how much Leon practiced, he couldn't get the needle to obey his less than nimble fingers. He put his sewing away and was about to leave housekeeping when he remembered the other assignment. Oh, I almost forgot, Maria. I've got to bring a towel to school tomorrow. A towel? Why? Your teacher planning to give you a bath? Leon laughed. I sure hope not. Maria handed him a tattered Trimore hand towel just as Emma Ziesel stuck her head in. Sweetie, I'm on break. Frau Haffenreffer has some sandwiches waiting for us. And so, with his homework more or less done, Leon ended the day sitting across from his mom in the Trimore Towers coffee shop. He didn't want to gripe about school, but he couldn't stop himself. Over PB&J, Extra J, and a bag of Zapp's kettle-cooked mesquite barbecue potato chips, his current favorite, Leon complained about his needle-wielding teacher. 9 months, Mom. I'll have to deal with the hag for 9 months. That's 270 days. You'll be fine, said Emma Ziesel, sounding more wishful than confident. And besides, there's no need to include weekends. Whatever, said Leon morosely. Depressing thoughts about sewing gnawed at Leon long after he had finished dinner. They were still with him when he climbed into bed. What had he done to deserve the hag? Why'd she have to scream at him? Would his entire year be filled with pink scraps of material, terry cloth hand towels, and liver-colored pantyhose? Would he be able to handle the work? Click, 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 buzz. From the far side of the bedroom wall, the Ice Queen started casting her evil spell. All hope of sleep disappeared. Grind, groan, rumble, crash. Leon rose from his bed and nervously paced around his room. The circuit took all of 10 seconds to complete. He looked at his stuff. There was the fuzzy picture of his dad taken a few months before the explosion at the factory, an empty fish tank that had briefly contained a piranha left by one of the guests, and of course the map of the world with the pins marking the taxi drivers Leon had collected. After 6 or 7 laps, Leon returned to bed. He tried to muffle the grinding noises of the ice maker by burrowing deep under the covers, but that did next to nothing. The Ice Queen's mechanical hex lasted most of the night, spurred on by mimes whose loudmouth antics and desire for ice kept Leon awake. Chapter 7. Animiles. Inspection time, Miss Hagmaier announced the next morning. Fabrics out on the desks where I can see them. She swept through the room like a castle guard, her instructional needle taking the place of a pikestaff. Occasionally, she would lower the business end of her pointer onto a piece of cloth that she deemed especially attractive. When she did, her manner would soften. This lacework is delicious, Antoinette. Belgian, is it? No idea, Miss Hagmaier, Antoinette answered. Nanny told me to grab something from one of the guest bathrooms. She could care less what I took. You mean couldn't. The proper expression is couldn't care less. Mr. Lumpkin, Miss Hagmaier's mood changed abruptly. Remove that pillowcase from your head this instant. Seems like an improvement to me, Leon said aloud before he could stop himself. That's enough out of you, Mr. Ziesel, Miss Hagmaier scolded. Lumpkin removed the pillowcase, turned, and gave Leon a look that made him instantly regret his quip. Miss Hagmaier continued her rounds. Gorgeous piece of silk, Fjawinnet, she cooed, rubbing his cloth between thumb and index finger. My dad told me silk comes from boiled worms, PW said enthusiastically. Your father is correct, though technically it's a caterpillar, not a worm, that gets boiled. Miss Hagmaier stopped next to Lily Matisse's desk. She reached for a piece of cotton tie-dyed in vibrant shades of purple, green, and yellow. Did you make this, or did your mother? My mom did, Lily Matisse said, sounding a little embarrassed. She tends to go for flashy colors. So it would appear, said Miss Hagmaier neutrally. She moved on to Leon's outpost, where she found not one, but 2 pieces of cloth. I suppose it's a start, Miss Hagmaier said, of the pink scrap covered with after-school practice stitching. She then harpooned the hotel hand towel with her instructional needle and read out loud the faded blue words woven into terry cloth. Property of Trimore Towers. How very utilitarian. Leon kept his mouth shut. Exhausted from lack of sleep, he was nevertheless alert enough to know that asking the meaning of utilitarian would get the word tacked onto the weekly vocabulary test. His decision proved wise. Miss Hagmaier ended her inspection and turned to the supply cabinet. Leon cast his eyes on the blackboard as she removed the padlock. He wasn't about to get caught sticking his nose where it didn't belong a second time, thank you very much. Miss Hagmaier spent a minute or so retrieving a few sewing tools. She then secured the doors and returned to the front of the room. Once satisfied that the supplies were properly positioned on her desk, she picked up her instructional needle and said 2 words no student likes to hear. Pop quiz. Over the resulting groans, she aimed the needle at Thomas and said, Mr. Warchowski, stitch number 3, name it. Chain, Thomas managed. Correct. Miss Breed, number 1. The first stitch of virtue is the running stitch, Miss Hagmaier. Correct. Mr. Ziesel, number 6. Satin? Incorrect, snarled Miss Hagmaier. The answer is directly above your head. She pointed at the poster taped to the wall. Overcast? Leon said sullenly after glancing at the picture of the severed hand stitching up a seam. He'd spent so much time struggling to master the stitch, he hadn't memorized its numerical rank. Bravo, Mr. Ziesel, Miss Hagmaier said sarcastically. For the future, I expect you to know all stitches of virtue, both alphabetically and by number. She put down her needle. Right, let's move on to my worksheets. As the handouts made their way around the room, Miss Hagmaier registered some snickering. Miss Jasper, does something amuse you? No, Miss Hagmaier, Lily Matisse said, suppressing a giggle. Perhaps you would like to share your wit with the rest of the class? It's just that it says animile on the top of the page, said Lily Matisse. It's supposed to, Miss Hagmaier replied curtly. She retrieved her chalk holder and wrote the following word on the blackboard. Animiles. It's a medieval variant of animal, and shares the Latin root with animate, as in living or make alive. All the creations sown in my class will be called animiles, not animals. Why? Because animals tend to be smelly, uncontrollable beasts that bite and bray and refuse to show respect. On the other hand, animiles. Miss Hagmaier turned and tapped the blackboard. Animiles do not bite, they do not bray, and, she paused to glance at Lily Matisse, they do not giggle disruptively. It is my expectation that by making animiles, you will cease to act like animals. Does everyone understand? A chorus of, yes, Miss Hagmaiers, filled the room. Good, she said crisply. Now begin. Leon felt tense as he leafed through the handout, a 9-step project that was supposed to transform a scrap of material into a decorative stuffed snake. Step 1 required Leon to measure a 6 by 10 inch rectangle on the towel he brought from home. That was a snap. Step 2, cutting along the marks, wasn't too tough either. The trouble only started with step 3. That's when the actual sewing started. Leon managed to make an okay-looking chain stitch down the middle of the towel, and he succeeded in backstitching the bottom and sides of his material. But then his fingers began to cramp. He paused for a moment to look over the handiwork. It resembled a tattered tube sock more than a stuffed snake. The word property ran up the side with the last 2 letters hidden inside a seam. Leon sighed. This snake is not proper, he said to himself. He wished Maria could help with the remaining stitches. From the front of the room, Antoinette called out, I'm up to step 7, Miss Hagmaier. The handout says I'm supposed to see you about special supplies. Excellent, said Miss Hagmaier. Come with me. Leon and the rest of the class watched as teacher and teacher's pet went to the supply cabinet. Miss Hagmaier unlocked the doors and pulled out the unmarked drawer that was cram-packed with pantyhose. Dig in, she said. Antoinette balked. Don't be bashful. Go on, dig in. Into your pantyhose? Antoinette stammered. Leon looked down at his desktop. He knew that if he made eye contact with Lily Matisse or PW, he'd lose it. Well, of course, said Miss Hagmaier. There isn't a better stuffing in the world than cut-up old pantyhose. One by one, students approached the cabinet to extract pantyhose. Leon soon realized he was way behind. His classmates had practically finished their animiles by the time he'd reached the stuffing stage. He caused himself further delay by refusing to handle his teacher's stockings directly. To minimize contact, he employed a pair of tongs as a pantyhose injection device, a precaution that only made matters worse. That snake is looking bloated, Miss Hagmaier told Leon on her next sweep of the room. It is? Most definitely. It more closely resembles a football than a serpent. Thin it out at once. Yes, Miss Hagmaier. While Leon removed wadded-up pantyhose from his snake, the rest of the class began submitting their snakes for final inspection. The procedure was the same for everyone. Miss Hagmaier would survey the animile for loose threads, measure seams, and take extensive notes on her clipboard. If she liked what she saw, she would authorize a trip to the finished bin, a large bag-lined trash can located next to her desk. After that, students were free to practice their stitching or read the fun fact sections of their medieval readers. Not long before the period was to end, Miss Hagmaier reappeared at Leon's desk. Well, I suppose the snake's shape is a tad better, she acknowledged. Her tone was one of mild disappointment. But do hurry up. Skip the eyes. Just finish up the tongue and mouth. Yes, Miss Hagmaier, Leon said. Although his hands were cramping and his head ached from lack of sleep, Leon pushed on. A few minutes later, Miss Hagmaier called him up to her desk. The bell's about to ring, so show me what you have. Leon plopped down his snake. Miss Hagmaier inspected it closely. The stitches on the belly are all crooked. I know, said Leon miserably. Miss Hagmaier removed a tape measure she had draped over her neck and pressed it against the snake's mouth. This overcast stitching is significantly below standard. It only requires 2 SPI. 2 SPI? Said Leon. He had no idea what Miss Hagmaier was talking about. Stitches per inch, Mr. Cecil. SPI for short. An animile seam should always register at least 4 SPI. Do you think you can tighten up the stitching? I'll try, Leon said through clenched teeth. I certainly hope so, said Miss Hagmaier, and when you do, make sure the fabric doesn't bunch up. I don't want the mouth to pucker. You mean like yours? Leon said to himself, looking at his teacher's pursed lips. If I can't fix the problem, Miss Hagmaier, I could call the snake Pinch. You will do no such thing, Mr. Cecil. Animals never get named. Why not? Asked Leon. If you named them, you'd get attached to them, and we certainly cannot have that. Why not? Leon repeated. Simply put, I keep all animals made in my class. Every single one, Miss Hagmaier? Yes, she said stiffly. Every single one. But no ifs, ands, or buts, Mr. Cecil. Go back to your desk and fix what needs fixing. The recess bell rang. Leon gave Miss Hagmaier a hopeful look. She shook her head. Repair your animile now. As Leon worked on his overcasting, he could hear jump rope songs and shouts of, "You're it!" coming from the playground. Tennis balls and basketballs flew past the window as he struggled to produce a thin, unlumpy, unpuckered snake. Let's see what we've got, Miss Hagmaier said when Leon resubmitted his animile 15 minutes later. I hope it's okay, he said. As do I, said Miss Hagmaier. She picked up the snake and took a measurement. I'm still not happy about your stitch count. 2 SPI is entirely unacceptable. The minimum, as I just told you, is 4. Still, your mouth stitching does show some improvement. I wouldn't mind stitching her mouth shut, Leon said to himself. Miss Hagmaier looked at her watch. I'm feeling charitable. Deposit the animile in the finished bin, as is, and go catch the rest of recess. Leon didn't have to be told twice. He binned the snake and hightailed it outside. The classical school playground was divided into 4 areas. There was the wall ball section, the jungle gym section, the place near the fence where the jump ropers jumped rope, and the basketball courts. Smack in the middle of these 4 distinct quadrants, bursting through the asphalt like a leafy geyser, was a hardy maple tree circled by a cedar bench. Leon dashed over to the tree, relieved to be free of Miss Hagmaier and her stitch counts. He jumped onto the bench that rimmed the maple's trunk and ran the circuit in search of his 2 best friends. He spotted them on the jungle gym and rushed over. PW figured out about the eyeballs on the cape, said Lily Matisse. She was hanging upside down by her knees when she made this announcement. What about them? Said Leon, clambering up to a crossbar 1 level below her. PW said, It's like some secret code. She chooses eyes to indicate future projects. Think about it. She came in with snake eyes yesterday, and look at what she made us do today. I wouldn't be surprised, Leon said. Everything the hag does is sneaky. Yeah, said Lily Matisse. Can you believe she's keeping our animals? And she won't even tell us why, said PW. Maybe not, said Leon, but I know a way. We might find out. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. So hopefully the sewing gets better for Leon, but we will see what they find out about when we come back tomorrow. Bye, you guys.